Here we go.
All right.
Let me see if I can hear it. We're live. Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Hopefully, maybe. Let's see. Good morning. Yes. All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. My name is Matt Bolka with Digital Innovation, and I would like to welcome you to JCPS Digital Learning Channel Live. Today, we have an awesome slate of trainings for you for 3 hours this morning. Before we get started, we're going to go ahead and take a look at that. So if we go into the jcps.me/NTI, we can find the virtual training schedule under the teacher toolkit. So this morning, we're going to start with Think Circa as an NTI resource with Jenny Avery and Suzanne Kramer, following with Promoting Independence through PreK Choice boards with Jimmy Wathen and Suzanne Krause. We've got Self-Care for Adults with Christina Shea Johnson and Lisa McGarry, COVID-19 Caring for Yourself and Others with Eva Stone, ECE Supporting Unique Learners Part 2 with Gina Gibson-Hurst and Nick Liff. And then we've got Defenses During NTI with Carmen Coleman and her crew of awesome administrators and backpack aficionados. So with us this morning, we have Jenny Avery, and we're waiting for Suzanne Kramer to get back in. You're getting the feedback? Okay. I'm not sure why. Let me see. Feedback problem. Okay, go ahead and start talking, Jenny. I'm going to try to fix this feedback here.
Okay. Can you all see my screen that says Think Circa?
Oh, there we go. Oh, they can hear you now. Sorry, I accidentally muted myself.
All right. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, they can see it.
Okay. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, you're good. Yep.
Okay. All right. All right. So thank you for joining us today. Suzanne and I are going to spend a little bit of time talking to you about a great resource that you can use during NTI called Think Circa. We've actually been partnering with Think Circa during this time. They are providing this resource to us for free, which is great because we had actually been in conversation with them prior to everything shutting down about using this resource for next year. So this is a great opportunity for us to try it before we buy it and see what teachers think. So we have had 4 90-minute to 2-hour trainings with Think Circa. That's way more detailed than this, and Suzanne and I can follow up or help you to get more information, but we wanted to give you a 30-minute review and overview for those of you who weren't able to watch the longer training with the Think Circa trainers.
Jenny, you might need to put your closed captions back on again. I don't see them popping up.
Did they go away? Okay, hold on. Sorry.
No, you're okay.
I'm not seeing.
So if you go to your presentation and go back to present mode. And then you should see the captions at the bottom. Yep, there you go.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
You're okay.
So we have this resource in our teacher toolkit. So if you go to the NTI page, you see there the teacher toolkit, you click on that. Then you'll click on, there's a resources to support planning and instruction link that you would click on. And once you get into there, you'll see the screen and you'll click into English Language Arts. And that's where you can find the link to Think Circa. Think Circa is really a great resource because it teaches critical thinking, which we always want to be the focus for kids. We don't want them just doing worksheets and regurgitating information from us. We want them to do the critical thinking. This is a platform that also requires some close reading, especially informational text, which is something that our kids don't get enough in our ELA classrooms. So they're reading informational text, and they're also engaging in academic writing. In the case of Think Circa, that writing is argument. And if you were in the classroom, a collaborative opportunity would be easier for you, and that's a part of this platform. But we've also provided some suggestions and ways for you to engage with your students and engage your students with one another through the various digital platforms that we have. And you'll see that the statement there at the bottom that says it helps kids achieve 2 years of reading growth per year. When implemented with fidelity and regularly in ELA and other classrooms, there's some great data out there that shows how it helps students to grow. Now, during this NTI season, we are focusing really on this platform in the English language arts classroom and not in the science and social studies, but there are resources there for those other classrooms. And if we move forward with this for the next school year, that will be available to those teachers. Do we have any questions, or am I good to keep going?
I am monitoring the chat. It doesn't look like any questions so far.
Welcome back, Suzanne.
Thank you.
So here's what Think Circa is. It's an acronym, and they refer to it as the Circa framework. And you can see there what each of those letters stand for. And really, it's around argument and teaching kids how to write arguments and to read and identify evidence and identify reasonings within what kids read. Now, we've had a few questions about why isn't it CRE? That's because they refer to reason as the little r, and they say it would be there between the C and the E. But some schools talk about CER, claim evidence reason. Some talk about CRE. It doesn't really matter in this context because it's all there. It just may be in a different order or in a different framework than what your school is referring to it as. So if you missed the intensive training by Think Circa, that doesn't mean that you're out of the loop. There are great teacher training courses and resources there for you. There's a link at the top of the slide, and you can click on that link and get to teacher training. The slide deck is linked in the virtual training framework there. We can also get it to you if you need it. But that teacher training course has 4 sections to it. And you can see them right there on the screen and about how long each section is. If you're a little more intuitive with trainings online and with technology, I don't think it would take you quite as long. But chapter 1, there is the overview where you create an account in a class. Suzanne is going to talk a little more about that account and class piece in this session. A lot of that is done up front for you and will be pretty easy for you to implement because everything's already been uploaded for teachers through Clever and or Google, whichever you can access. Chapter 2 is about the lessons and the types of lessons that are there, and I'll talk about those in just a minute. Chapter 3 is about implementation and ways to engage students. And then the 4th training chapter is about grading and providing feedback. And during this time of NTI, we are encouraging more of the feedback piece as opposed to the grading piece. I'm sure you've heard lots about that. So here's how it helps kids with reading and writing. It develops those skills, helps kids be better consumers of information and to think more critically and to express a point of view. And then through all of those, kids will improve with their reading and writing skills. So within Think Circa, there are 3 different lesson types. The writing lesson is really what culminates more towards the end. But prior to that, kids can engage with direct instruction lessons. Those vary in length, and you can choose what those direct instruction lessons are. It's generally a set of slides that kids go through to teach them a skill. We are encouraging teachers to supplement those direct instruction lessons with your face in your voice using something like Screencastify to help teach them those lessons. Following direct instruction lessons are skills lessons. Skills lessons take students around 30 minutes, and that's where they practice those skills from direct instruction. So the direct instruction and skills lessons are more like mini lessons. And then the writing lessons are the ones where kids get into what they refer to as the Circa, and they get more intense around the specific text. I'm going to back up just a second before Suzanne starts in. With the writing lesson, you can't see it very well on the slide, but across the top there are numbers. And so once students go through a direct instruction lesson, they practice the skills lesson, then they get into the writing lesson, where they'll go through any number of these processes. As a teacher, you don't necessarily have to have them do all of them. So the connect is where there would be some sort of a connecting question to connect students with the article that they're going to read. Number 2 says read. So they'll read the article. They might answer some questions. Number 3 is engaging with the text. That's where students have the opportunity to highlight within the text. They might use one color highlighter to highlight evidence that shows how students should use school uniforms, and maybe a different color highlighter to highlight evidence for why students should not wear school uniforms. Number 4 is summarize. Number 5 is where they start to build the argument, and that's where I think Circa provides sentence starters and frames to help students. And then finally, number 6 is where they create their Circa. And again, students may go through all of these steps within a writing lesson, or they may not, depending on how you set that lesson up. So that's really the big picture overview of Think Circa. But before you can get in there, you have to know how to set up your classes, and that's where Suzanne's going to take over for us.
Morning. So Think Circa is fully integrated with Google Classroom, and we have a really great remote learning plan that we are going to share with you in how to use Think Circa and Google Classroom together. One thing to note is we are hoping to continue this partnership with Think Circa as a part of school-wide literacy in our district K-12 literacy plan. And next year, your classes, if we move forward with this, would be rostered for you. But during this time of NTI, we are going to have to, since we're just focusing on ELA, teachers are all loaded up in Clever for Think Circa. However, we do have to create a class and give students a class code to join, just the same way you probably did maybe when you set up a Google Classroom. And so you'll go to Think Circa, you'll click Educator, you'll log in via Clever, and then you click on Classes up there in that left-hand corner, and then you will see the 2 tabs that say Create a Class or Join a Class. If you are a co-teacher, collaborating teacher, you may wish to join an existing class, and what's great about that is that you can assign, you can give feedback, and so it's a really great option for co-teaching classes as well. So you'll click Create a Class, and it'll generate a code there for you, and Jenny's hovering over that with her cursor. And then in Google Classroom, you would share that code with your students. And so it's going to ask you in Think Circa just some information about your class. I'd probably put the same section numbers that you have. Sorry, Jenny, I'm bouncing around. I would have your Think Circa classes mirror your classes in Google Classroom. That would just be easier to implement, I think. For NTI, of course, you probably select April through June, grade, subject, and so forth. And then you will push that code out right there in Google Classroom. And then your students would log in under students in Think Circa, and then they would just put in that code. This is showing if you're a co-teacher, how to join a class and create. It's a really, really intuitive platform. This is the view when you get into Think Circa. If you're an educator, you would click log in via Clever. You're all set up there. If you're a student, you click on student, you log in via Clever, and then put in that class code that your teacher has pushed out for you. You can see right there. And actually, it doesn't matter as a teacher. You can put in log into Google, log into Clever. It doesn't matter. It'll get you in there. And then this is the student view. Students will use that class code that you pushed out for them, type it right in that box, and then they're in Think Circa, and they'll be able to see the lessons that you're designing for them. I'm hopping over to the chat to see if there are any questions. It doesn't look like it. So with that, we're going to move on to our learning plan. So our hope is in the coming year that we will align the Think Circa modules to our curriculum frameworks. And so the idea would be maybe in module 1, there would be a Circa that was connected in terms of standard and compelling question to the content and standards that are in framework modules. That's our goal for next year. For NCI, we wanted to create a learning plan that was ready to go for teachers if they wanted to use it. And so we partnered with Think Circa to design this NTI sort of learning plan or scope and sequence. What you'll see at the top is how to get to the curriculum frameworks and to the NTI platform, to all of those digital tools and all of that learning that you'll need, because there are tools from the JCPS NTI platform that are part of this remote learning plan. And then what we've done is each week we've put one of the writing modules, a compelling question, and students then engage in very scaffolded steps in terms of their output. They may not engage in the entire Circa in the first week of NTI, and that's intentional. So if Jenny, if you would open up that learning plan there. Thank you. And teachers, you can find this learning plan that Jenny has just clicked on the NTI platform under ELA resources. So under teacher resources for NTI and the teacher toolkit is where you can find this under Think Circa. And so you can see we've laid out 6 weeks of learning here, just as a suggestion. And so the idea is that you would assign students, what is Think Circa? And there's a video here for them to understand how to navigate and so forth. And then in grades 6 and 12, you'd assign the skills lesson around claims and argument, the writing lesson, and so forth. Down here in the teacher tips, we've showed you how to use Google Classroom with Think Circa. So what steps, maybe on Monday you say, this is what our focus in Think Circa is for the week. Here's what you're going to be expected to do. You make that announcement in Google Classroom. You then assign the steps, and we give the order down there in the teacher tips. And then across each week of learning, we've kind of identified the skills lessons that students should engage in. Again, the skills lessons are very useful, but they're very brief. We recommend teachers using Screencastify or recording themselves in Google Meet or maybe Nearpod, some of those tools from the JCPS NTI platform, to do those close reading, think aloud, shared writing lessons that students may need to shore up misconceptions or provide additional support. And of course, those can be posted asynchronously on Google Classroom. And then in a Circa, if you were in the classroom, there would be an academic dialogical piece, a Socratic seminar that's a part of the Circa, for example. Well, we're virtual, so what we've done here is given some suggestions on how you might leverage small groups in Google Meet to have those, create those dialogical experiences. And then, of course, the most important part is descriptive feedback. And so we've shared the different ways that you can provide descriptive feedback within the Think Circa platform. So you can give written feedback on student writing within the platform. You can score the writing using a rubric. We're recommending right now, with our focus, particularly in elementary and middle, on met and not met, to really focus on that rich descriptive feedback. We haven't had a chance to calibrate our PLCs and scoring on those rubrics, so you can actually give students descriptive feedback and push their claims or their paragraphs or their holistic writing or work back to them without even giving it a number. And then they can resubmit having made those adjustments that you suggested in your feedback. So this is a really excellent opportunity to leverage feedback to improve student writing. And so again, you'll see that over here, the student output is heavily scaffolded. This first week, they're only completing steps 1, 2, and 4. They're not going through the entire Circa. And then if you scroll down to week 2, you can see that we're layering in appropriate use of evidence. And then once we get to week 6, then students are really engaged in the entire Circa during the NTI process. So this is just a suggestion of a learning plan that might be a really good fit as you for the first time. And our hope is that we'll get some great feedback and some good information on the student experience and the teacher experience to help us make this a really, really great option for literacy growth across disciplines in our schools for next year. Jenny, I'm headed over to the chat to see.
So, Suzanne, one of the questions was, does it support students with visual impairments? And I know that one piece is that there's a reader, a teacher, not a robot. Can you recall any other supports that might be there for students with visual impairments, or that might need other students that might need other accommodations?
So one of the great things about the reader for the writing lesson, which has the larger article, and remember the article that students will read that answers a question about the roles of machines, for example, in that first week, students will read that article. There are annotation tools, color coding, notes, etc. And what's so great about this platform is that then, of course, those annotations that students are doing, those notes that they're making, then become their reasoning in the writing. So this is really integrating that reading writing process that we need so badly to have happen at secondary. Often we see this, we read a thing, we read a whole bunch of text, and then at the end, we write a whole bunch. And what this does is it integrates those cognitive processes. And so the writing lesson where we have that longer text, Jenny's showing us here, you could use grade 7 text, for example. It is read by a teacher. So it's not a robot voice. So that's really nice. And then the other piece is it is fully, what is the word they use? Adapted technology. So those PD sessions that our digital learning colleagues have done around the read, write, extensions for Google Chrome, all of those can be used with this platform. So again, we link to the digital learning, the NTI page, or this digital learning plan. And so the idea is that you would use those tools, the Screencastify, the Google Meet, the read, write extensions in Google Chrome, then to make this a fully adapted experience for your students. And so you would use the Google Chrome extensions, which, Jenny, they would typically be up in that right-hand corner on your bar. You'd see those up there. You may not have them. And then it would read the questions and so forth to the student. So I hope that answers the question.
We don't have any other questions, but I went ahead and clicked in on an actual Circa lesson. So you can see where you can choose your grade level here. It goes from 3rd grade up to 12th grade. The essential question for all grades is the same. You can see at the top. But then there's a little different question down here for students. Here's the writing, and the text is different by grade level. And so if we preview this particular Circa, I think I clicked on 6th grade, you can see across the top here, there are those numbers of the steps. You may do them all, you may not do them all, depending on what you want to focus on. But here's step 1 where they connect. Here kids would write about, describe things in your house that do work that used to be done by people. Has technology made your life better? And students would write their answer here. And you see the green bar go over here. So when they respond, their work saves right here in Circa.
And I would add, I think the question that's connected to the text, that would be how I would first maybe approach those dialogues in Google Meet. I might push out a Google form to students with some times when it might work for them and their families and their device usage to meet with me. And then maybe we would kind of have a dialogical protocol in a small group over Google Meet using those questions with the text. And so I think this kind of shows you all of the steps that students are going to experience. And one thing to note, it is a Circa, it is a cyclical learning process. It isn't necessarily linear. So students can enter the Circa and move through the Circa in their own sequence. And at the end, in step 6, when they're designing their writing, there's no traditional sort of thing where you have to have a thesis statement in the first paragraph. You have to have these body paragraphs in a certain order. And so I really like that because students can take their annotations that they've made, their notes, their claims, all of that kind of work that they've done along the way, and they can reorder it, elaborate on it, and move it around to create original arguments that aren't governed by an artificial structure. So the writing teacher in me really, really likes that part of it. And also students can move through what you've assigned at their own pace and sequence. So it's we need to think about students entering into the Circa, not necessarily from 1 to 6, but more in sort of a cyclical fashion where they can come on and off and move through it in their own way. And we'll get to that kind of level of personalization as we use this platform more and more.
And a couple of things that I didn't say earlier on, this is designed for beginning 3rd grade up. So it's not something that you'd want to use for primary. And when you assign, even though within the platform you can assign different grade levels, really what you'd want to do is stick with whatever your grade level is, because this is tier 1 instruction. We're using this for whole class. So if I'm a 9th grade teacher, I would want to assign the 9th grade prompt and have kids work through that and provide them with the necessary supports they need for that. And I think there are a lot of those supports built in. If I teach 9th grade and I have students reading on the 5th or 6th grade level, there are some supports built in here for me for students. Like here you see there's the reader, here's the text. You can see words that, vocabulary words are bolded for them. If they click on it, it will give them a definition. So there are a lot of supports built in there for students who may be at the 9th grade but aren't reading at that level.
And they do also have a connection to the ESL WIDA consortium. And so there is a link or a connection to those I can statements for language acquisition for our English learners. And so there's some really, really great tools built in here to help us scaffold and differentiate learning. And our vision is hopefully that this can become a part of acceleration, some of those lower level texts. If we're in the 9th grade, we can use some of the lower level texts for acceleration. We can assign higher level texts for students who are ready for that. And then of course, we are always focusing on access to grade level complex text in tier 1. So we are at 9:30 and we need to hand it back to our digital learning friends, but please connect with Jenny and I. We can support your PLCs. We can do a personalized sort of mini training for you. So thank you so much for being here this morning.
Yes, thank you, ladies, so much for joining us this morning. If you guys tuning in today, you do want to see their materials, they are linked on the JCPS virtual training schedule, which can be found at jcps.me/NTI under the teacher toolkit. So thank you all so much, and we appreciate you tuning in. Joining us for our 9:30 session, my name is Matt Bulk, and I am with Digital Innovation. And today we have Jimmy Wathen, and Jimmy, is Susan Kraus going to be with you this morning as well? I think you might be muted, Jimmy. No, we still can't hear you. I'm not sure why.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. Yep, that's better.
Sorry about that.
You're okay.
Susan will be facilitating the chat box with me today, but I will be doing the
All right, fantastic.
the presenting, and hopefully she'll be joining us shortly with that. Thank you, Matt. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jimmy Wathen. I am the Child Development and Education Specialist with the school district. And helping me facilitate this morning is an early childhood instructional coach, Susan Kraus. The topic of my presentation today will be all about the choice boards and the lens of preschool. And I do have a PowerPoint, and it was also linked on the agenda as well for people to be able to access. So I will go ahead and start by sharing my screen. Second. All right. Can we see the slideshow?
We can. If you don't mind, can you put your cursor down at the bottom where you could change slides, and will you click where it says captions for us and turn those on? That's fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. We'll get started. It's promoting independence through the PreK Choice boards.
Will you check one more time to see if those captions are on? I don't see them appearing. There we go. Awesome. Thanks.
All right. So a little bit of background about the choice boards. As you know, the choice boards were started at the beginning of our school closures several weeks ago. An option for families to do activities while their students were not in school physically. Those were pre-K through 12, and which will be the focus that I'll be talking about this morning will be the pre-K choice boards. But pre-K is also included in the choice board initiative. The initial development, as I mentioned before, the purpose of it was to provide activities for students and families to do while they were not in school. They are something that is an ongoing development. In other words, we just did not stop with that first week. Those have continued for several weeks, and they will continue throughout the entire MTI process. And I put a quick link there to the choice board portal where you could see, I have a screenshot there where you could see all of the choice boards there by grade level. This is just a screenshot of what the pre-K choice board looks like. It's very similar to the other grade levels. Slight difference, we broke the domains down of early childhood development, where you see like language, physical development, health, social, emotional, and self-help. So slightly different. But in many instances, it's similar to the other grade levels choice boards that we have. How do we create the pre-K choice boards? What are they based on? So they were intentional, and they were based on many things. First and foremost, they're based on the Kentucky Early Childhood Standards for 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. That was one of our go-to documents in the development of the activities on the choice boards. Another thing that it is based on are the basic PS kindergarten readiness skills. I will I have another slide that I will get to shortly that focuses a little bit more on those readiness skills. Of course, we have the main focus of JCPS preschool programs is to get our students ready for kindergarten. And using the kindergarten readiness skills document was key in the development of the choice boards. Another thing that the choice boards are based on are the whole child. When you see the activities, you'll see they're not just academic type activities. There are also activities that focus on the social, emotional development of the child, as well as the physical development of the child as well. So all domains were taken into account with the development of those choice boards. And you also find that the activities that are on the choice board are hands-on types of activities. We all know that young children learn best through actually doing activities, hands-on activities, so those principles were incorporated into the choice boards as well. What is it not based on? They're not based on random guesswork. As I said before, the activities are intentional. When we developed the choice boards, we didn't sit down and just say, hey, I think it'll be a great idea if we do this activity, because I think that will be a real neat, fun activity that kids can do. No, it's not based on random guesswork. Everything's intentional based on the things that I mentioned earlier, including the standards and readiness skills. Another thing that you won't find in the PreK Choice boards are the use of worksheets, dittos, things that require one closed-ended response, fill in the blanks, matching, circling and coloring pages and things like that. So you will not see those on the choice boards because they're not developmentally appropriate for preschoolers. Another thing that you won't find are activities that you would see that were the latest and greatest on websites like Pinterest, Twitter, Facebook. I know there are a lot of really a lot of activities on those sites that really look cute, but we did not base our activities on those. We were intentional in ensuring that the activities were based on all of our standards. And of course, there's other sites like Teacher Pay Teachers where you can pay other teachers for their ideas and things like that. So none of the activities were based on those types of places. Moving forward, I've included here some links, and if you have the actual PowerPoint or Google slide, you will be able to access these websites. First and foremost, our JCPS Ready for K website. Many of you are familiar with this, especially if you are a preschool teacher, kindergarten teacher perhaps, early primary. We're probably familiar with our JCPS Ready for K website. There is a link directly to, if you go to the JCPS homepage, it is one of the static buttons on the homepage. I think there's another one that says work for JCPS. One of them is how we spend your money. And so this is, of course, it's such a kindergarten readiness is such an important initiative for the district that they actually placed a button on the JCPS homepage. It's always there for the Ready for K website. So it's easily accessible to both teachers, parents, families, community, child care providers, etc. Another thing is that I've linked are the Kentucky Preschool Parent Guides, a wonderful resource from the Kentucky Department of Education with lots of activities based on the Kentucky Early Childhood Standards. Basically, what the Preschool Parent Guides do is they take the Kentucky Early Childhood Standards, and if you're familiar with those standards, it's all education ease and lots of acronyms and things that, unless you're in the education field, you might not really understand. So what those preschool parent guides do is they take those Kentucky early childhood standards and they break them down into language that people that are educators can understand. And those are available, by the way, in both English and Spanish. Another thing that a resource for the activity development for choice boards that you can use are the Lakeshore Readiness Backpack activities. Many of you all know, if you are in preschool in the district, that every preschool student enrolled in preschool in JCPS received a backpack delivered to their door, and that it's actually a physical backpack full of school supplies. There's things like crayons, glue sticks, pencils, paper. There are manipulatives inside, and activities and resources actually inside the backpack. So there's a link to the Readiness Backpack where you could see what is actually in that. So you could develop activities for the choice boards, knowing that those children would have access to those materials because they would have received one of the backpacks. Again, another resource are your Big Day for Pre-K curriculum. That's our main resource that all of our preschool classrooms utilize in JCPS, and so certainly take that into account with developing your Pre-K choice boards. And then another wonderful resource, and we've done a lot of collaborating with the National Center for Families Learning, a wonderful organization. They do lots of work with JCPS, not only in preschool, but at each grade level. So they have wonderful resources as well, and I put a link there. And then the weekly staff newsletter that's sent out to all of JCPS preschool employees each Friday. Lots of activities that we feature in that newsletter that will be great go-to resources for materials for your choice boards. The next, I just wanted to highlight, this is the actual, when I mentioned the kindergarten readiness skills that we base many of the choice board activities on. This is an actual image of the kindergarten readiness visual. This has been it's been at least 6 years now that we have utilized this visual, so it's probably very familiar to most of you all. The kindergarten readiness visual has 42 kindergarten readiness indicators, and these are indicators that are actually based on the Kentucky early childhood standards. We have taken those standards and we've broken them down into actual kindergarten readiness skills that are helpful for children to know before they start kindergarten. Of course, those are not prerequisites. They're just ideal things that children should focus on as they begin their journey to kindergarten. This is taking one piece of the kindergarten readiness visual, so you could see the actual skills or indicators from this one is actually the general knowledge and mathematics domain. So you can see the skills there, sorts and classifies objects, similarities, differences, and so forth. These are some of the skills that we have used in the development of the activities that are on the PreK Choice boards. And again, that's just one piece of the Pentagon, the 5-part Pentagon kindergarten readiness visual. So I've taken screenshots of actual sections of some of the PreK Choice boards that we have done that have been developed so far. So you can see up close what those look like. We have 4 here, one for letter knowledge, science, math, and social emotional skills. And so you see underneath, they all have that common kindergarten readiness skill. And then again, those skills were taken from that readiness visual that I showed you in the prior screen. Then you'll see the skill, and then you'll see an activity that focuses on that kindergarten readiness skills. For example, the letter knowledge activity you see has the recites the letter of the alphabet is the skill, and then the actual activity that focuses on that skill is listed underneath. And you'll see it. All of these when you see them on the screen, they're all hands-on activities for students. This is a very important slide, and I'm going to spend some time talking with you about this because it's so important. Remember, when you're developing your choice boards, remember equity and access for all. Don't necessarily think about it in terms of what you would feel would be equity, because that's how your family or your current situation is. Think about your families. One of the aspects of the preschool program is that we do home visits. And so you know your families because you've been in their homes, you interact with them on a regular basis, you know what their needs are. And so those need to be taken into account, which includes your students with disabilities. You'll find on the PreK Choice boards, on every choice board, we have listed accommodations for students that have disabilities. Keeping in mind that they will be supported by an adult. Well, really, that's with any of the activities on the choice boards. Most of the activities are ones that families will be doing with their child because of the developmental age and needs of 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. Of course, our students that are dual language learners, we have 700 plus dual language learners enrolled in our preschool program alone. So the needs are there. I have put links to resources for students that are dual language learners that will take you to the district's NTI website where it lists supports for our dual language learners pre-K through 12. Families living in poverty. So if you do, you'll notice that the PreK Choice boards, there aren't a lot of links to outside websites. That's keeping in mind those families who may not have access to the internet or computers. So you'll see the PreK Choice boards are not heavy on links. As I mentioned before, families living in poverty, there are 2 qualifications for a child to be enrolled in Jefferson County Public Schools Early Childhood Program. One, the child may have some type of identified disability in an IEP, those students, or their family receives free lunch. So that would make up about 99% of the children enrolled in JCPS preschool programs are living in poverty. And so keep that in mind when you are doing these activities, that you are not putting unreasonable asks of parents in terms of supplies that they will need to complete those activities. I get a lot of enthusiastic people that send me ideas for choice boards. Very well-meaning. They say, hey Jimmy, have you thought about doing this activity? I think it's really cool. I found this on Pinterest. I think this will be something that'll be really fun and neat for our kids to do. Well, very well-meaning. And, none of it's intentional that we're wanting to leave groups of people out, especially, in terms of people in poverty. But when I looked at the list of things that they needed, I think the parent would have to gather clothespins, poster board. I think it was wanting to make there was a recipe for Play-Doh. I think it was liquid starch and food coloring and an assortment of things that the parents would need in order to do that particular activity if we had placed it on the choice board. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have many of those things, if not any of them, that were on that list in my house. So if I wanted to do that activity, I would have to drive to Walmart or Walgreens or Target to purchase those things. And those are non-essential items in the current world that we're living in right now. So we shouldn't, no one should be going out to get those things, let alone asking parents who are living in poverty, and many that have lost their jobs because of what we're going through right now in the world. So we do not want people going out having to purchase things that needs to be common things that most people would have around their house. And again, think about it from what other people may have, not necessarily what you, a teacher, may have in your cupboard. Okay. Again, I mentioned before, you've gone on home visits, you know what your families have, you know, you have a close relationship with them. So keep that in mind when you're developing activities. It needs to be things that most people will have around the house. And the activities that are on the PreK Choice boards that we've developed, do keep that in mind. Keep in mind the unique needs of all families. You know, they may not be able to do all 10, 12 activities on the choice board. They might be a good maybe just do a few of them just because of their hectic schedule that they have. Or it may be an older sibling that's doing the activities with the child because the parent has to work, is not available or able to assist. And then, of course, other groups, those will be groups that you know that you have in your particular classroom. Well, that will be different for every teacher. So what are some things for self-monitoring by pre-K students? So I would suggest that parents and guardians to set up a schedule and routine for each day. Let's say, you know, first we're going to eat breakfast this morning, and then we're going to do one activity from the choice board, and you get to pick which activity that is. And then we're going to do some board games. So, you know, again, that will be different for each child and each family, but encourage to set a routine to do those particular activities. Preschool and kindergarten students crave routine and consistency, and so that's certainly the case during NTI and when families are doing choice boards. Next, I would suggest that the teachers check in regularly with the students and the parents on the progress for completing the choice boards. You know, give them a call and say, hey, the choice board that you got on Monday, I just wanted to see how you all are doing on that. Do you need anything from me? How's it going? What do you think of the activities? You know, when I said next week, do you think I should change anything? So regularly check-ins from the teachers is very key in monitoring the completion of choice boards. And then I would suggest if you have students that, you know, tend to get overwhelmed easily, that you limit the choices that are on the choice board. To say, hey, you know, this week only do the 3 that you think that you would enjoy doing most. So don't expect that they do every single activity on those choice boards. We want to refrain from overwhelming not only the child, especially, but also the adults or caregivers that are doing the activities with them. And again, it could be an older sibling that's been designated by the parent to do the activities with the preschooler in the household. What are some things to motivate families to do these activities? Teacher, first, you are the first, you know, you are that face they know. Or it could be your instructional assistant. Encouraging the activity completion, that phone call, that text, that message through Google Classroom, whatever it is that you use to keep motivation to do these activities is key. Invite other members of the family to become engaged with the child. It doesn't have to be the parent, grandparent. It could be an older sibling. It could be a younger sibling that once that's really eager and curious about what their sibling is doing on these choice boards. Most certainly, they're welcome to do these activities as well. The more the merrier, and keep that motivation going. As I said in previous slides, set realistic goals for the child on how many choice boards and activities that are completed. Start small and work their way up. Maybe this first week you do 3, the next week you do 5, and the next week after you do 7. Again, it's up to the individual child and family's unique situation. One thing to do, children love to be motivated by, even the most simplest things. I'm not saying you need to go out and buy, stickers from the parent-teacher store. It doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be, candy and junk food. It could be something as simple as a happy face that's drawn on the choice board by the parent for completing the activity, a check mark. And if they complete, if they reach their goal, you say, you do 4 choice board activities this week, then you get to, for example, feed the gerbil, feed the fish. You get extra TV time this week, or you get extra computer time, or you get extra time playing the games, playing a fun game that the child gets to choose. So, the sky's the limit on those reward systems. And then, don't forget the child. Let him or her come up with some of the rewards that interest them. And again, I'm going to wrap up. I just have a couple of minutes left. But I will want to say that the templates for completing the choice boards, those are available to teachers for them to create their own, and we encourage that. However, my team will continue to develop those choice boards, and those will continue to be published and placed on the choice board portal on the NTI website. So, I know your teachers are, could be overwhelmed right now. There's a lot going on. You're more than welcome to utilize the choice boards that we provided to you. That are, the PreK Choice boards, and those are going all the way up to each grade level, and each department will continue making those available to teachers and families as we move forward together during this NTI process. Susan, did you notice any burning questions in the chat box that you would like me to, my last minute here, to answer or respond to?
Susan, I think you might be muted. We're not getting anything through your mic.
All right. I take that as a no. Again, I want to thank everyone. I had my contact information in the slide. My email, feel free to reach out to me. Be more than happy to assist you in the development of your choice boards. We may have some kindergarten teachers in addition to our pre-K teachers. I have a taught kindergarten for many, many years, so I can also feel free. I do not mind to help you, or first grade teachers, early primary. If you need ideas or suggestions, I'd be more than willing to work with you. I don't limit myself just to preschool. Thanks, everyone, and that's a wrap for our presentation this morning.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
And Susan, we appreciate you tuning in as well. So we are going to move on to our next session. If you want to find any of the resources from today, you can go to jcps.me/NTI, click on the teacher toolkit, and go to the virtual training schedule. Coming up next, we have Christina Shea Johnson and Lisa McGarry with Self-Care for Adults. And this has quickly become a fan favorite in our virtual training. So please, if you're just joining us, introduce yourself in the chat, which school or department you're from, and let us know if you have any questions. Take it away, ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy Friday.
Yes. Happy Friday.
No, happy, flexible, fabulous Friday. How about that?
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started. I am Lisa McGarry, a resource teacher with social emotional learning and trauma-informed care, and with me today is Shay. You want to introduce yourself?
Hello, Christina Johnson, Shay. I am also a resource teacher for Jefferson County Public School, serve as social emotional learning / trauma-informed care. We also have our other team in the chat room, so please visit. Come on in. Our boss, Dr. Lamisa Marks John, and Dr. Jennifer Driscoll, who's also a resource teacher.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started with self-care for adults during this time period. What you see on your screen right now is our contact information. So if you don't feel comfortable putting things in the chat, but would like some resources, have some questions, feel free to reach out to any of the four of us. I will put our information up again at the end of the presentation in case you miss it here. But again, please feel free to reach out to any one of us with questions or needs for resources. Our goals in our training today is to talk about some ways to manage stress and anxiety as we are dealing with these trying times with the coronavirus. And then Shay's going to talk to us about how to create a self-care plan, offering some tips and some insights into what that might look like. With all of our trainings, we always include a self-care alert. Being the trauma-informed care department, we talk about trauma, which sometimes brings up some tough feelings or some anxiety for individuals. So if you feel like you need to take a break, feel free to walk away from the presentation. I know it's being recorded, so you can always check back. We also did these every other day this week at 10 o'clock. So if you can't find this one, feel free to look through Monday through Thursday. Also, take some time to talk to someone. Like Shay mentioned, we have our colleagues in the chat box right now. So if you have questions, you have concerns, please feel free to put those in the chat and they will do their best to respond to those. The other thing that we offer as a suggestion is to do something relaxing. Take some time to be cognizant of your breath, just finding some quiet time, taking some time to yourself, reading a book, whatever you might need to do so that you are able to relax and come back to the information when it works better for you. The first thing we want to look at when we are diving into all of this is what we are actually dealing with. At this point, most people are aware that the coronavirus is a worldwide pandemic, and all of the uncertainty that comes with it brings fear and worry, anxiety, stress to many of us. And all of the changes that we've had to make in our daily lives and how we are able to work and how we are able to take care of our homes and how we are able to feed our families. There are many unknowns in that there is no vaccine for this and no specific path for curing the coronavirus yet. So Lisa, that brings about lots of uncertainty, which then leads into the unknowns. Well, what if this or what if that? Lots of worry that comes about as we try and continue on for ourselves and for our families.
Lisa, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can you put your cursor down at the bottom and turn your captions on for me? I forgot to ask you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Okay, it's also important to remember to stay alert and up on information as it's changing. I know there was an announcement yesterday by the president that he has issued a plan to governors to start reopening economies and letting some states begin to, again, implement some new changes. It seems like that there is something happening at least weekly, if not daily, in the changing. But the more important thing for us is to be aware of how we manage our reactions to that news, not allowing ourselves to become overwhelmed with all of this information, but also being cognizant of our reactions for our own well-being and for the well-being of those around us. always makes me think about when I was in the classroom and drills started to change to include those for active shooter or intruder drills, and the unknowns that came with that, and the fears that some of the students would have. And I remember seeing those eyes looking at me and thinking, they're going to react the way that I react. So no matter how I feel about this, I have to kind of wash that down or figure out a way to separate that so that I am able to show them we can be calm. It's just one of those things that we have to deal with, and the best place is in a calm mind. So again, just being aware of that so that we're able to keep ourselves in that space. We mentioned this already, but feeling anxiety and the increase in nerves is normal. This is another thing that I want to point out, that we have to honor those feelings that are coming up. We have some things that are coming about that are positive from this. If we are able to maintain good hygiene habits, if we are more socially aware of the needs of others. I had to go pick up an order from Sam's yesterday, and they do some time in the morning that is only available for those who are 55 and older. So if it means that I am more aware of those around me, absolutely great. If the rest of the public does the same thing, that we are not trying to fight in the aisles of Walmart over the last roll of toilet paper. If those things come from this, amazing. But it's also important to honor those feelings of anxiety. And maybe you've never experienced anxiety to this level before. That's okay. Find ways that you would normally deal with stress as it came up, and continue to do so. Focus on those needs that you have. Now we're going to look at some ways to manage some stress and anxiety. So we have some tips for you. One of the things I have already mentioned is not becoming overwhelmed with information, but do keep yourself abreast of what is changing, but rely on those trusted sources, looking at the Department for Public Health, the CDC, the Attorney General, all of those places that are coming to us, the governor, not the Attorney General, sorry, the Inspector General, all of those people who are giving us information. Don't log into Facebook, to Twitter, to Instagram, and post all of the things that everybody has to say about the pandemic. People have different opinions about it, but listen to those who have the knowledge and the background and the wherewithal to give you the appropriate information. Also, follow the guidelines that the governor talks to us about every evening at 5 o'clock. There are 10 things that he mentions, making sure that we are doing what we can in our part to stay healthy ourselves and also to not spread this. Reminding yourself to work with small children and hand washing, since 20 seconds is the time that we're supposed to use when washing hands. Show those children how to do so that when this is all over, they're still having good habits. Showing individuals how to sneeze or cough into an elbow or a tissue, doing that yourself. Again, being cognizant of not spreading this virus while also maintaining your own personal health. Some other strategies are to prioritize the ways in which you manage your anxiety. Use relaxation techniques. I know in our chat yesterday, somebody mentioned that they do yoga to help themselves relax. There are several mindfulness apps that are out there, many that are free right now. I know that the Calm app is one that many people use. It's one that's free for teachers to find those ways that work for you. There are videos for meditation on YouTube. Use those if you need to. Whatever it might be that works for you, make sure that's a priority in your day. Find some ways to move. It is so important for our bodies that our blood is flowing. And when that happens, there are endorphins that are being released by the brain, which just in of themselves calm anxiety and stress. So do what you need to do and in the ways that you can to maintain and manage your anxiety and stress levels. The last thing I want to talk about is finding those positive things that are taking place through all of this. There are many stories out there. Some you have to search for, but some you don't necessarily have to. Be cognizant of the free resources that are now available to us. I saw a video of a black bear in Yellowstone National Park, and they were talking about how the population hasn't increased, but without all of the tourists and the cars in the park, bears are able to roam freely. So they see them much more often than what they would if there were so many individuals there. There are many stories out there, but that one struck me specifically because I'm thinking, here it is that I live in Kentucky, and this is somewhere out west, but I can see a live feed. Years ago, that wouldn't have been the case. But finding those moments, those things that interest you, that you want to see about as the world is responding to all of the things going on. So there's lots of negative, and those are easy to find, but find those bright spots and positive things within the news and in the world taking place. Okay, Shay.
All right. Once again, happy Friday. Our team likes to say happy Friday, and it is a flexible, fabulous Friday, right? And so, question this morning, how full is your cup? We've been talking about it all week long. Hopefully you didn't wake up like this, right? Maybe you woke up like this. Maybe you woke up with a third, with a half. Talk about it in the chat room. How full is your cup? And how can we get it a little more fuller? All right. So we cannot pour from an empty glass. Can't do that, right? So we have to pour from a glass that's full. And you need to find out what are some ways that your cup can be full. Mine is practicing gratitude, being grateful. So we have to take care of ourselves. Why? There's a yellow sticky note that we all have. You are special. You are awesome. You are making it through this, right? You made it through Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. Happy Friday to you. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about self-care. I have two friends out there, Lisa and my brother who's helping me. You out there?
Yes.
I'm talking about you. Where is he?
I don't think he's in the Google Hangout. Is he in
I'm
the
talking
YouTube
about
chat?
you.
Oh, you're talking about me. I'm sorry. I was like, there's nobody else here.
No, yeah, my JCPS brother, you. So tell me, what do you hear when you hear self-care? What do you think about?
So I think about spending time with my dog, playing video games with my friends, spending time with my wife. Eating good food.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. A lot of people think about yoga, sleeping. Some people don't have dogs, so that's your self-care. It may not be other self-care, but we're going to find out. Go to the next slide, Lisa. Let's define self-care. So it's the practice of taking an active role, right? That word is so important, an active role in protecting your own well-being, your own happiness. I love that they put that word happiness in. Your own well-being and happiness, in particular during periods of stress. Pandemic, we're in it, right? But we still have to take care of ourselves. Okay, let's move to the next one. So let's think about some things that we can control. Can we control what time we wake up in the morning? Yeah, we have these things called phones and alarm clocks. Can we control what we eat? Absolutely. The work we do? Absolutely. We cannot control what's going on with the COVID, but we can control by ourselves and our health by wearing our masks, maybe gloves, staying at home. So we have to focus on the things we can control, because if you get lost in talking about and getting worried about the things you cannot control, you're going to have a sour day. So let's focus on the things we can control. And one thing I want to mention, schedules have been going really, really well for our JCPS students. I know in my home, there's a time to do our homework. There's a time to eat breakfast. There's a time for phones and video games. There's a time for reading. So when you set aside those schedules and those times, it makes the day go by easier, and I can control that. And adults, guess what? Schedules work for us too. Next slide, please. All right, so during this COVID-19, is it possible to have fun? And my answer is absolutely, absolutely. Tell you what we did last night, so much fun. We went and got the photo albums. You're talking about a night of laughter and of memories. And Mama, why was your hair like that? And Daddy, why was your shorts that short playing basketball? We had an amazing time. You have to find those little joys. You have to. It's time to find those little joys, because we don't want to sit around and complain and being worried and being fearful. Please find the joys in this situation. Okay? And we need to have find reasons to laugh. Laughter is a great exercise. You don't even have to get up to laugh, right? In a crisis, it can be a powerful coping mechanism, right? Some people are way too serious. We need to find things that bring us joy, find things that make us chuckle a little bit. I had a really LOL yesterday on my couch with my pug. And I mean, I can laugh really loud and hysterical. I'm over exaggerate. And my kids came in and they ran in, Mama, what's funny? And I said, you know what? Storm, the dog, broke wind and scared herself. I'm sorry, but that was hysterical. And laughter is contagious, so we laughed. It had to be 5 minutes of laughter. And while we was LOLing, let me show you what happened in our bodies. Lisa. Benefits of laughter, right? So while laughing, check it out. It relaxed the whole entire body. So those tense muscles went away, boost the immune system. We need that like right now. Orange juice, laughter. Apples, laughter. Green beans, laughter. We need it. It will boost your immune system. Protects the heart, improves your mood, lowers your blood pressure. And we know those feelings of angst and fear and worry, they are coming into play, right? Find reasons to laugh. It gives you more energy. And guess what? A day of laughter and a day of joy, you'll get some good sleep. Next. So my favorite, being grateful. This is what I live off. This is how Shay keeps her cup full, right? Anytime some uncertainty or thoughts come into my brain, I switch it around and say, but Shay, look what we do have. Look what we can have. Look what we can do. Instead of, if we have to stay in, bring out the video games. If we stay in, let's call Granny, right? So every day before my feet hit the floor, I think of things I'm grateful for. Then I get up and I write it down. Try it, write it down, and I put it right there in the bathroom, taped on the mirror. I can see it, my husband can see it, my kids can see it. Live a grateful life. Let me show you. Today, I am grateful for lights. Not only lights, electricity. If you would take a moment and think about how life would be without electricity, that would be a really, really hard life. So we're going through a pandemic. Think about if they say we have to be 3 months without electricity. Oh my. So that's one thing that I am grateful for. Another thing I'm grateful for are memories, and I get to share those memories with my children. Like I said, I got out the photo album yesterday, and if you don't have photo albums around, I'm sure you have a phone loaded. Go through those memories, have some, cry a little bit, laugh a little bit, right? And share those with people around you, or send them to a friend on your phone. Great memories. Lastly, I am thankful for birds. I hear them singing. I've heard them singing almost every day this week, right? And it's just I can't put it into words. It's a really happy feeling, right? It's a really happy, there's something that comes over you when you hear birds singing. They always sing on tune. Let's go to the next one. So we're going to look at a plan that hopefully will boost your laughter and will boost your kindness mechanisms. And 3 things I'm grateful for. I'll share mine. Lisa, talk to me.
So I am grateful for my faith. This something that, I find as we continue into having to draw back from our normal lives, something that is able to keep me going and positive. I'm also grateful for my family and the support that they are offering. And, I'm glad that the people that I'm quarantined with or stuck in the house with, social distancing with, however you want to look at it, are the ones that they are, because we appreciate each other and have not been ready to kill each other yet.
Yes, love it, love it, love it. Let's move to the next column. 3 things that bring me laughter, bring me joy.
One would be my son DJ. He is a male, but he is almost just like me. So it's funny seeing him grow up, and some of the dances and the songs that he sings. It's just a replica, and that brings me so much joy to see myself in a male body. All right, my brother, talk to me. What brings you joy and laughter?
Spending time with my wife and my dog. We've been trying to go through our list of TV that we're watching. And then I also like to play a lot of video games with my friends online. So it's kind of like I'm still hanging out and socializing with them, which is really nice.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And let me tell you why I'll call you brother. Anytime I present in the schools, we are all a part of the JCPS family. And so I just feel like when I go into the schools or anywhere in the JCPS district, I have brothers and sisters, and we have that commonality. We're together, and we're going to get through this together as a JCPS family. That warms my heart. Lastly, 3 things I can do to have fun. Please talk to us in the chat line. Let's steal some ideas. It's the weekend. It's time to turn up at home. Lisa, what can you do? What do you do to have fun? Something different from gardening.
Okay, I turn on some music and either just walk around the house and listen to it, or I have been cleaning to music. It hasn't been a whole lot with words, so I'm not singing along, but I do like to move to music.
Music is universal. I love it. My brother, what do you do to have fun?
So every Tuesday, we have a group of friends. We've started having like a dinner club Google Hangout. So a bunch of us get on there. We have some food and we just kind of hang out. And I think last Tuesday, we were on there for like 4 or 5 hours together. So
I love
That's
it.
awesome.
Love it, love it, love it. Please share with us in the chat room also. One thing I like to do to have fun is picnics. So tomorrow, and my kids already know this, we are planning a morning picnic. We're going to watch some old cartoons, bring out the bedspreads, and just sit and eat cereal and pancakes, orange juice, all the good stuff. So, and guess what? There's no time limit. It's Saturday. We can sit and picnic all day if we want. Lisa? Mindfulness. What we need at a time like this. Mindfulness is simply paying attention to the present. Yesterday's gone. Can't do anything about it. And tomorrow has its own worries. So what we need to do is focus on the right now. What are you doing right now? Right? And so mindfulness, people think of meditation. Okay. People think of yoga. Okay. Well, do you know there's a such thing as mindful eating? Right? It's about savoring every bite. It's about the smell of it, the texture of it, just being present in that moment. Quietness and stillness, that's a part of being mindful as well. It all encompasses that. But please be mindful that it's all about being in the present, right? And paying attention to your body sensations at the moment, your thoughts, how you feel, right? Do a temperature check, and I'm not talking about the thermometer. Right now, I feel grateful. Right now, I feel happy. How do you feel this morning? And if your cup is not being filled, what can you do? Right? It's all about being in the present. Don't worry about tomorrow. It'll come. All right. So what we want to do right now is have just about a minute, 30-second mindful breathing activity. And there's been so many studies that prove that deep breathing and mindful breathing and intentional breathing is really, really beneficial to our bodies, right? It calms our brain, and we all need calm brains right now. So could you please take a minute and 30-second, and we're just going to follow the bubble, and we're just going to inhale through our nose, and we're going to exhale through our mouths, and just appreciate the gift of oxygen. It's a gift. And appreciate just a calm, relaxing moment right now. So we're inhaling and exhaling. Inhale. Exhale. Exhale. Inhale. Last one, exhale. Thank you. All right, I hope that did you some good. Any moment throughout today, whenever you need to just stop and pause, it's okay. It's certainly okay. We are going to get through this, but we need to sometimes just stop and breathe. You ever notice the players at the basketball game and they go up to the free throw line and they've been huffing and puffing and huffing and puffing and they stand and you can actually see their shoulders go up and down before they make that shot go cards. Okay. Benefits of laughter. Okay. So yeah, make sure you're breathing, make sure you are filling your cup, right? Why and how, Shay? How? One, be grateful. Think about things you're grateful for. Phone a friend or a family member, tell them how much you appreciate them, tell them about your plans today, ask them about some new recipes, have that gift of communication, right? And find reasons to laugh, find reasons to have fun. Get on YouTube, type in your comedian, right? Get you some popcorn and some apple juice and sit back and have a good time. Hee hee and a ha ha. Fill your cup. And then call somebody and start filling their cup. It costs absolutely nothing. So we are going to end today, Friday, with words from our wonderful, wonderful mayor. And in the chat room, if you want to give us some Friday shout outs or some encouraging words to keep on keeping on, the little engine that could, what would you tell them? I think I can. We're going to get through this, guys. But from Mayor Fisher, just want to touch on this point. Things will be different for a time. We know this. But there's no reason why we can't try to enjoy ourselves. Remember, find the small joys. Taking a walk, taking your dog for a walk, telling a joke, right? Learn something new. You have time to learn something new. And there's a wonderful World Wide Web out there that will be your cheat sheet. Let's keep our minds and our bodies active, right? Bring dopamine into your brain. That's that happy hormone instead of cortisol. That's that sad, depressing hormones. We don't want that. And we need to be healthy and active during this crisis. Is it possible? Absolutely. If you have air in your lungs, it's possible to make it through this crisis. The SCL team loves you, and we don't even know you. You are JCPS brothers and sisters. Please have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Here's our contact information. I didn't want to say this. We have choice boards that we've been giving out hard copies to our parents and families at the food sites. If you would like one, you can give us your name or email in our chat box, and we will send you a whole calendar full of activities that cost absolutely nothing. Just some ideas. We just want to share some ideas with you and your family. So you want to get a hold of that. And if you get that copy, take a picture. Don't be stingy. Send it to your family and friend. Thank you so much for watching this morning. Take care.
Hey, Shay, I wanted to add too,
Sure.
don't forget that you and I are coming back next week with part 2 on Monday, Wednesday, and
Yes.
Friday. 1:30, I think, is when we're on the schedule. So
Okay.
if anybody wants to see us again, come back on Monday, Wednesday, or Friday at 1:30.
This isn't peace. This is part 2. Part 2, being mindful and taking care of yourself. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, ladies, so much. Again, everybody loves your sessions. It's exactly what we need through these weird, challenging times. So if you are just joining us on the JCPS Digital Learning Channel, my name is Matt Bulka, and I am with Digital Innovation. Today, we are going to be doing some virtual training. So our next one is COVID-19 Caring for Yourself and Others with Eva Stone. You can find our virtual training schedule if you go to jcps.me/NTI and you click on the Teacher Toolkit. The virtual training schedule is right here. You can also follow along with us on Twitter at JCPSDI. for more information and for some ideas on how to continue to do awesome stuff during NTI. So we are now with Eva Stone for caring for yourself and others during COVID-19. So Eva, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks. Hey, everybody. I'm Eva Stone. I manage health services for JCPS, and Angela Hayes is one of our great nurse practitioners with the district, and she is on as well, and she will be answering questions you may have during the chat. So we're going to talk about caring for yourself and for others during this COVID-19 outbreak. Let me see here. I'm going to share my screen. Let me try that again. Sorry, everybody. There we go. Okay, hopefully you all are able to see that okay?
Yep, we can see it fine. Before you start going, if you don't mind to just hit the captions button at the bottom for us, and also click that hide button there as well. So we, right on the very bottom where it says stop sharing or hide, if you click hide for us, that'd be awesome as well.
I see it now. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, so what we're going to talk about in this session are how to recognize the signs and symptoms of COVID-19. We're going to talk about some steps to take if you develop symptoms of the virus. We're going to relate steps to care for a loved one who develops COVID-19 symptoms. We're going to describe ways to protect yourselves and family members from infection from the virus. And then we're going to talk about ways to care for yourselves or others during times of stress and isolation. And if you were on the previous session, I think you got some great information on how to do that. So first, to talk a little bit about the signs and symptoms of COVID-19. So, of course, this is a novel virus. It's a new virus. And if you watched the news at all, then you know that this is something that's brand new, pandemic around the whole world. And what that means is that nobody has immunity to this virus, or nobody had immunity to the virus when it first came out. And so they're still in the process of collecting a lot of data on the symptoms of this virus and how this virus works. But what they think happens, first of all, in the first few hours, people can develop a fever or just get really tired. Some people are having a sore throat. Some people have a cough. And if you remember early on, before we were out of school, we were looking for specific symptoms, and they said that cough had to be one of the symptoms that folks exhibited, those respiratory symptoms. And now they have found that that is not always the case. People may have some shortness of breath when they're walking, may have a dry cough, may have diarrhea. And actually, of folks that I've known that have developed the virus, this seems to be a fairly common symptom. If you've been listening to the governor speak, Kentucky is developing some testing sites around the state. So they have Franklin County, Kenton County, they're opening up 2 other testing sites. And one of the things that they've requested or they're allowing is people who are having just those gastrointestinal symptoms, that diarrhea, to be among those considered for testing as well. Not all states have done that, but Kentucky is recognizing that there's gastrointestinal symptoms associated with this virus. Some people don't have a fever at all. Symptoms are usually gone by 7 days into the virus. Now, 80% of people infected are just going to think they have a mild cold. And so that is really one of the main reasons for all of the measures that have been taken to prevent spread of this virus in the state. It's because most people don't really realize that they're sick with COVID-19. And so staying healthy at home is the way to prevent the spread of this virus. The virus itself will not travel. It's people that travel. And when people travel, they carry the virus to other places. An estimated 25% of those who develop the virus don't have any symptoms at all. And so that's concerning as well. And you can imagine why, because of 1 of every 4 people infected with the virus really don't seem to have symptoms. These symptoms progress differently for different people. And those people who get really sick tend to be those who are older that have chronic diseases. So we know that people with heart disease and people with lung disease tend to be at higher risk than others to get really sick for this virus. So most people will get the virus, and then within 7 days are better. About 5 days in is when you really see the symptoms of the virus worsen. And so those are the people that you really end up seeing most about on the media. Those are the people that end up on ventilators. And so, and then once somebody is progressive and they develop this seriousness with their lungs and they require mechanical ventilation, then it takes the time. And often those folks are on a ventilator for a couple of weeks even. And so then when you start hearing about death, it's often in people who've had the virus, they've been on a ventilator for a time, and then they go on to pass. And so that's why it's very important that we take these measures in particular to protect our population who's most at risk. And then that's also why you hear so much about the need for ventilators. Again, if you've listened to the governor talk about, that's one of the things they've really focused on in Kentucky is making sure that ventilators are available for people who need them. And also, if you've watched the media much, you know in some places that was one of the big concerns that they had is they didn't have enough ventilators to take care of all the people who were really sick and needed mechanical ventilation. And then they had to make decisions about who got a ventilator and who didn't. And so Kentucky has done a very good job about being proactive and helping to decide, helping to ensure that we don't have to make those kinds of decisions. And with the hope that people end up with a ventilator and then go on to get better and can come off the ventilator. So, of course, we've got resources in Jefferson County and conversations that I've had with the public health department. Right now, at the rate of infection, our hospital systems in this area are well prepared to deal with a number of sick people. They've got provisions in place to have separate areas to care for patients with COVID-19 and ensure that there's access to ventilators. They've done some projection and they don't anticipate concerns with having enough ventilators to care for people. So that's all very positive news for our area. So if you develop symptoms of COVID-19, the things to do as best as you can is isolate yourself from family members and pets. Now, sometimes that's hard because you're the primary caregiver in a household. So the goal is for you to isolate yourself as best as possible. They have, they're now going to start, and I think the Lake Cumberland area are going to start opening up state parks, housing for people. People can stay at some of these sites who have COVID-19, but don't have a way to isolate themselves from very at-risk family members. And so that's another good step. It sounds like the state is taking to make sure that we can care for people with the virus and protect others. If you have an increase in symptoms, so you start having these symptoms of the virus, you think that you're infected, and the guidance really is to stay at home, to not be out and about. If at home you start noticing that your symptoms are worsening, you start developing shortness of breath, then you would contact a healthcare provider. If you go somewhere to be seen or evaluated, you want to make sure that you're calling ahead to let them know that you're coming, because they'll make special arrangements as to where you need to enter the facility, whether they're going to come to you in your vehicle, those sorts of things. And of course, if symptoms get severe, that's when you would want to call 911. So testing, we've heard lots and lots about testing. There's still a shortage of swabs, so it's not just general testing, but now that's being corrected day by day. Last night, if you listened to the president, or if you didn't listen to the president, he announced that that's going to be a priority to make more testing available. The standard test they've been doing is a nasal swab, and it's like a flu test. It's a swab that goes into the back of your nose. It's not real comfortable to have, but it is the best test to have because it's the most accurate, because this is a respiratory virus, and so that's where you're going to find most of the virus. But they've now come out with a test that is done on saliva. And so they collect a sample of saliva and do testing that way. So again, as I stated, Kentucky's really been working on this, on more widespread testing, so they can know where there's areas or hot spots, as they call them, of the virus. You've seen that around the country as well. There's some areas that have been hit particularly hard with the virus, and other areas that you don't see it as much. But testing will be important so that we can know where these areas are and then enact some measures to help prevent the spread. Testing is still limited to the sickest people, but that's actually changing again with what the governor has announced this week. And so more and more testing is available. There are going to be more rapid tests. So we thus far have been having to wait 48 hours at least, but often 5 to 7 days to get test results. And now they'll be having these kits where we can have results more quickly. But bear in mind that knowing the test results doesn't necessarily change the treatment options. So when testing becomes more widespread, it's really going to be for the point of knowing where there's a number of cases of the virus, and then letting us that work in health and in public health know how to respond to that. And so that's why they encourage people who think they're sick with the virus to stay home, because you're less likely to infect other people by doing so. And again, testing is going to continue to expand as more supplies become available. So if you have a loved one that has COVID-19, you want to have them wear a cloth face covering, something that would cover their nose and mouth when they are around people, and that is including you. So the guidelines from the Centers for Disease Control, there was all this talk, again, when the virus first was known in the United States, that masks weren't something that were indicated. And so now they've come out and said, well, we do recommend that people wear cloth face masks when they're around other people. And that's still the same case when you have a loved one that has COVID-19 and you're not in a high-risk position yourself. So nationally, when you talk to the governor and even locally, it is still very important for those hospital-grade supplies, that personal protective equipment or PPE that everybody discusses, is to have those kinds of supplies in the hands of healthcare providers who are in facilities where they're caring for patients with the virus, because they need those higher grade supplies to protect themselves from being exposed to high doses of the virus, which is more likely to make them sicker. But for the rest of us, it's recommended, if we're caring for somebody with a virus, or even when we're just out in public, to wear this cloth face covering that covers our nose and our mouths. And so if you go to the Center for Disease Control's website, and type in face masks, you'll find they even have a pattern there that will show you how to make your own a homemade face mask. If the sick person can't wear a cloth face covering, you should definitely wear one while you're in the same room with them. And then if the sick person needs to be around others, either at home or in a vehicle or at the doctor's office, again, they should have a cloth face covering that covers their mouth and their nose. And these cloth face coverings, when we ask people to wear them, it's really because it's keeping the virus contained to their own body and not transmitting it to others. The other thing the face masks are very helpful in doing just in general is reminding us not to touch our nose or our mouth. So to prevent the spread of this germ and any germ, you want to wash your hands often. We keep hearing that over and over and over again with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. The reason is this virus is surrounded by a fatty membrane. And so the soap and water actually, and the friction of the rubbing actually dissolves that membrane. So you really are getting rid of the virus when you wash your hands properly. And you absolutely need to be washing your hands if you're taking care of a sick person. If soap and water aren't readily available, use a hand sanitizer that's got at least 60% alcohol. That's hard to find these days too. There's recipes available for people to make their own hand sanitizer with alcohol and aloe vera gel. Cover all surfaces of your hands and rub them together until they feel dry. But again, hand washing, if you have access to a sink, is absolutely the best thing you could be doing. Always and forever. Not just for COVID-19. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. And every day, clean all surfaces that are touched often. So counters, tabletops, doorknobs, cleaning in the bathroom. Use household cleaning sprays or wipes according to the label instructions. You can also use a 1 to 10 bleach solution. That's effective against the virus as well. And some interesting things that are coming out now, as I mentioned, some people have gastrointestinal symptoms with this germ. We know that it's spread that way and that it affects the gastrointestinal system. And so they've done some work in China with some of the hospitals, and they found that the hospitals were doing a really great job of containing the virus to the room, and they were also cleaning the surfaces in the room. But what they discovered was that the virus could be found in bathrooms, that people who were sick were shedding the virus in the bathroom, and then when the toilet was flushed, it actually created kind of a plume of virus droplets that would be aerosolized again for a time. So the point in all that is if you've got somebody in your household that's sick with coronavirus, then it's also important to clean bathrooms and to make sure that they're disinfected as well as the rest of the house. Laundry should be washed thoroughly. If it's soiled with virus, wear disposable gloves if you have them. Keep the soiled items away from your body while taking them to launder. Wash your hands immediately after removing gloves. If you don't have gloves, wash your hands immediately once the clothes are in the washer. Don't have unnecessary visitors at the house. And for any additional specific questions about the care of somebody in your family who has the virus, you should contact their healthcare provider or the health department. And of course, Kentucky has the hotline available for people to call when they have specific questions. You want to make sure that the person who's sick drinks a lot of fluids to stay hydrated and that they rest at home. Over-the-counter medicines may help with symptoms. You may remember that when this word of this virus first started, people were saying that ibuprofen should not be used, that it could be harmful for people, and they have found that that is not the case. So over-the-counter medicines such as ibuprofen or acetaminophen or Tylenol can help with the symptoms of fever. A lot of people with this virus complain of achiness in their joints, and you'll find that ibuprofen is typically more effective for that kind of pain because it's an anti-inflammatory as well. For most people, symptoms are going to last a few days, and then they get better again after about 1 week. So home isolation should end or can end after there's no fever for at least 72 hours. So 3 full days of not having a fever without the use of any medicine to reduce the fever. So no fever for 3 days without taking Tylenol and without taking ibuprofen or those kinds of medicines. And the other symptoms have improved. So the cough or shortness of breath should be resolved, and at least 7 days have passed since their symptoms first appeared. So someone who has this virus needs to be away from other people and home for at least 7 days. And they need to meet all of those requirements before you should be out and about or your family member around other people. Now, some people will have been tested because you may have family members who are healthcare providers or first responders. And so what they do with the first responders is if they've been tested and there's no longer a fever, again, without the use of medicines for that 72 hours, and then the other symptoms have improved, so again, the cough and the shortness of breath is resolved, and then they need to have 2 negative tests in a row that are at least 24 hours apart. And so when those things happen, it's possible that they could be out and back in action for a shorter period than those 7 days, but they have to have 2 negative tests in a row, at least 24 hours apart. And then they'll follow the current guidelines from the Centers for Disease Control to get them back, to be able to be back at work. So I think again, there's important things you can be doing to take care of yourself during this time. We hear this a lot as well. A lot of you are we're working from home. And so ways to help prevent the virus or take care of yourself is to pay attention to your physical health. So we should all be making sure that we are eating healthy. I think when we're stuck at home, it's hard to focus as much on eating healthy than we may do typically in our lives. But we want to eat a well-balanced diet. You want to make sure you've got your fruits and vegetables. You want to make sure that you're getting enough sleep. We all need at least 7 to 8 hours a night of sleep. You want to be staying physically active. You need to focus on exercising during this time at home. There's lots of things that have been made available for people to take advantage of exercising at home during this time. Lots of yoga, lots of apps. Actually, they're offering free trials, like I think it's called Beachbody, is doing a 2-week free trial period. But I know on YouTube there's lots of videos that can let you stay physically active during this time. And then, of course, your mental health. You want to take care of your mental health. You want to limit the amount of information that you're taking in about the virus. It's pretty tempting to stay on social media or the news and listen to reports about what's happening here and in other places. But you really want to limit the time that you spend doing that. You want to make sure that you're doing activities that can help distract you, particularly when you're feeling anxious. So listening to music, reading books, those are all great things. You want to get outside as much as possible while you're maintaining social distancing. So not only for the exercise piece, but really just to be out in nature as much as you can and being mindful of maintaining that social distance and staying away from others. And then some tips for working remotely, which is we've all been thrust into this new normal, and it's going to be a while before we are back to normal. So when you're working from home, set healthy boundaries. If it's possible in your home, establish a dedicated workspace. A lot of you are working from home, and not only are you working, but you are teaching your kids. You're making sure that they're doing their work from home. There may be several of you who are all trying to work from home. And so as much as possible, set some boundaries around workspace and around your time. And when work time is over, make work time over, but try and separate, because our boundaries really are blurred right now. And so that's important for you to do. And then maintain a routine. Make your start and end times for work just as if you were going to work. Take a lunch break, get up, walk around. And I love wear real pants sometimes. How many things have we seen on social media now about people who get up and walk away from the Zoom meeting and they're in their boxers. But the point of that is get up, make your day a day. Don't just roll out of bed and be in your PJs all day. That just is really hard on you mentally it's blurring those boundaries about what your workday is and what home is. And you want to do as much as you can to not blur those boundaries. On the district website, the academic support team has put together some strategies for coping with uncertainty. And so I encourage you to take advantage of those. The link is there, but you can find those on the JCPS website. And then the district, I want to make sure that everybody knows that there are district resources available for employees who have the virus. And if I can, I will show you the site on the JCPS website. And so employees can access paid sick leave and expanded family leave if they have the virus. And so it's important for you to know that that's there and take advantage of those resources. And so with that, I want to, let me stop sharing here and see if anybody has any particular questions that we can answer at this time.
It didn't look like we had any in the chat. Somebody had mentioned a choice board. Do you have a choice board? Or maybe that might have been for the self-care session. I guess this is self-care. Did you mention a choice board at all?
No, that was, I heard her say that in the last session.
Okay, that was the last session. Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see any questions in the chat. Thank you so much for all the info. It's great to hear from healthcare professionals actual important facts.
There's a lot out there that's not. So yes. That's right. That's right. All right. Well, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Eva. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thanks so much.
All right, if you guys are just joining us this morning, I am Matt Balka with Digital Innovation, and we are on JCPS Digital Learning Live. If you want to find our training schedule, you can go to jcps.me/NTI and click on the Teacher Toolkit. You can find all of our resources there. If you click on the virtual training schedule, you can find links to all of these sessions that we're going through this week. Coming up next, we have ECE Supporting Unique Learners Part 2 with Jeannie Gibson-Hurst and Nick, is it Ilif? Did I say that correctly?
It's Ilif.
Ilif, I'm so sorry. If you are also interested in following along on Twitter and learning some great NTI tips or just some tips for when we go back to school in general, you can follow us at JCPSDI, which again stands for Digital Innovation. And if you're joining us in the chat, please let us know. Whoops, my camera's not on. Please let us know where you're from, what school or department, and if you have any questions. We have some other members of Digital Innovation in the chat with us. We have James Unger and Kathleen Receiver, and I believe I've seen Russ Hockenberry in there from time to time as well as our team leader, Heather Worrell. So we are super happy to have everybody here with us. And we can go ahead. We have like a minute left. We can go ahead and get started if you're ready, Gina.
I'm ready, thank you. So I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Awesome.
And turn on my captioning. Let's see. There we go. Let me go into. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're okay. You'll just want to hit that hide button, right? That's kind of a...
Yes, I need to get back to there we go. The hide button. All right, we are good to go. Is my captioning working?
No, it's not on right now.
How about now?
Yep, it's working now.
Okay, perfect. So thank you. Happy Friday, everybody. I'm Gina Gibson-Hurst with the ECE department. And today we are here to talk about non-traditional community-based instruction. So community-based instruction, or CBI,
is an instructional practice that many teachers of students with moderate to severe disabilities use in order to promote generalization of academic and functional skills. We know that a skill is not truly learned until students can generalize it. So what good is it if a student is practicing all of these great skills such as cooking, cleaning, doing laundry, if they practice them at school, but then do not generalize them into the home setting? We know that skills have to be meaningful for students and functional, and in order for that to happen, they have to be able to generalize across settings. So this unusual time is an excellent opportunity for us to really partner with families to practice that generalization so that students are working on skills that they've been targeting in the classroom and in the community. They're also working on those skills now at home. So the 4 domains that we're going to talk about today for CBI is self-management and home living, work-based learning, rec leisure, and community functioning. And then I forgot to mention, as we go through these slides, my resource teachers are in the chat and available to answer questions or take questions that we can get back with you on. So let's take a look at some ideas that my amazing resource teachers put together for implementing CBI during NTI. It's catchy. And for purposes of time, I'm going to move through some of these slides. You'll have access to them. So I don't want this to be necessarily a CBI training. There's additional information in this presentation that I'm not going to go into detail about. But teachers certainly have access to these slides. And you'll want to make sure that you go back. There's some excellent resources. I'm not going to have time to go into all of the links. So be sure that you go back and check those out. So for rec leisure domain, instruction really focuses on how to support students in accessing extracurricular activities, activities that they can do alone, with friends, family, fitness, and activities that they can do in the community. So some options for rec leisure activities include looking at magazines, playing games, FaceTiming with friends. This is funny. They're called Quarantunes. So if you click on this link, I think right here, they have live concerts that artists have put together. So that would be something, a virtual concert. Sports at home. So make sure that you go back and check these out. There's some great ideas for exercising.
Gina, I think your captions got turned off again somehow.
My what did?
Your captions. I don't see them anymore.
Okay, how about now?
Yep, you're good now. Sorry.
Okay. All right, so for rec leisure activities that students can do alone, we have our adapted newspaper with News to You that all of our moderate and severe disabilities teachers have access to. In fact, actually the company has extended licenses district-wide, so that is an option for all teachers currently in JCPS. They can play games. There's a nice website over here on different musical instruments and skills that those instruments target. And then for our students that like to bake, there's a nice accessible, it's called the Accessible Chef, but there are different recipes in there that students can go to and bake and cook simple meals with their families. So some rec leisure activities that can be done with the family might include game night, puzzles, playing catch outside. And then here are some fitness ideas. So the next domain would be work-based learning, and that's moving students towards their career paths and supporting them with vocational skills that they need. Looking at some options from home for work-based learning might be, there's a wonderful website that has videos about different careers, and so students can go in and look at different jobs and the prerequisite skills for those jobs and learn about those jobs from home. So there's some examples here: landscaping, baking, and data entry. But the website that students will want to go to is the Career One Stop. So it's an excellent resource for teachers and families. This is a really fun video. Another important skill that our students learn about in school is how to dress appropriately for a job interview. A lot of our students practice mock interviews at schools, and we have them practice dressing for that interview. So they'll come to school dressed to the nines, and we talk about appropriate grooming and hygiene. So this video is a little comical, but it relates. I think students will relate to it. There's a lot of important tips for how to dress to impress. All right, and then some other resources that Stephanie put in here. Stephanie is one of our transition resource teachers. There are jigs and videos on how to practice skills that students might be working on in the classroom or at different job sites in the community that are temporarily closed down. They can also practice those at home now. Just to give you an example of what one of these look like, this is a task analysis for cleaning mirrors and windows. And I'm sure parents will appreciate the extra help at home. So there are several task analyses and videos that students can follow along with. Make sure my captions came back on. There we go. So for rec leisure, here are some examples of things that students can do at home to practice different activities that they can do in their free time. They may read books or magazines, play electronic games, again, FaceTime with friends, sports. I'm sorry, I think I went backwards on accident. Here we go. All right, so self-management and home living. This is really where our students are working on skills to help them to be as independent as possible. That might be hygiene, safety and health, budgeting, meal prep. So we have some great resources in these slides. This is a great resource over here. It's the practicalmoneyskills.com. I'll click on that. This website has a variety of different lessons related to like consumer math. I'll click on an example for student activities. Now, teachers may have to modify these lessons, but they're excellent starting points to give us ideas so that we're not starting from scratch. But these are things that our students are working on, learning the importance of money, how to budget, spending money, which is my favorite, and comparison shopping. So there are several resources, activities for families and teachers on that website. Some other ideas for the general community functioning domain might be that they are practicing crossing streets safely. They might be doing some online grocery shopping, practicing just general community safety. Here's a nice social story that talks about COVID-19 and why our community might look a little different right now. This is a really great activity that Krista came up with. Having students go into Google Maps, they can look for safety signs. They can practice looking up their home address and looking at their home or their family member's home. They can look their school up. And then just a scavenger hunt around the community, looking for these environmental print. Practicing, this is, we learned about what this sign means in the classroom, and then taking them out to the community where they're actually using those signs to generalize that skill. Here's a nice grocery shopping lesson that Krista came up with. And then finally, data collection. Some ideas for data collection might be that the teacher sends home a task analysis and has the parent just mark a plus or minus. Did they need prompting, or could they do that step independently within the skill? And they can get their data that way. Parents can submit videos or have the students complete a self-evaluation. And then, of course, also the teacher can access, interact with the student through a digital platform, observe the student performing the skill, and collect data that way as well. And then some additional resources that you'll want to make sure that you go back and check out are on this slide. I'm going to go back out to my original presentation. Okay, make sure that you go back. The resource teachers have been working very hard to update the shared drive that we discussed last week. I'll go ahead, excuse me. I'll open this up. I'm not going to go into all of these folders, but as you can see, we've built on quite a bit from where we were last week. There are a lot of digital lessons in here. And what the team is working on for this next week that I hope to be able to share next Friday are some of those non-digital instructional units. So I'll be partnering with Cindy Simpson in our assistive technology department, and we plan to show how we can enhance learning in the home with other means besides technology or high-tech lessons. So with that, I will hand this over to Nick Iliff, and he's going to talk a little bit about adaptive behavior.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I'm going to talk about adaptive behavior, and I think Gina and I presenting together, I think, is perfect because a lot of the resources that she just shared within her drive that her team has created, you're going to be able to use those resources to talk about adaptive behavior. So I'm going to click over to presentation and go to present, close captions.
I don't think you're sharing your screen right now, Nick.
I'm not sharing it. Okay, let me see. And right-hand corner, present.
If you go back to the Google Hangout window, if you scroll to the top part of your screen at the right, there's 3 dots and it'll say share screen if you click on it.
Share screen.
Yep.
Got it. Now here I am. Sorry about that.
You're okay.
And like I was saying, I'm glad Gina and I are presenting together because a lot of the resources she shared will be that we can use when I'm talking about the adaptive behaviors. So, okay, so and clip captioning is on.
Oh, you're still we still don't see your slides for some reason. I don't know why.
Okay, I go back to the Hangout and share. Share screen?
Yep, share screen, and then there might be another window that pops up where you have to click on it and then click share again. So it'll say like your entire screen or application window. If you click on your entire screen and then click share.
And I've done that, and it is not sharing. Your screens, choose what you would like to share. Yep, it says your entire screen and share. Is that correct?
Yes.
And
there we go. Now we see it.
There we go.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, you're okay. Yep. Now you can go over
right.
your presentation and just make sure captions are on when you're presenting.
Present.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks for being patient. Again, I'm going to talk about adaptive behavior. And again, a lot of the things that Gina just went over insofar as self-management and home living skills, and all those things are good resources to go back into when we talk about adaptive behavior. So first, I'm going to just talk about what is adaptive behavior. Adaptive behavior refers to the behavior that allows a person, usually in the context of a child, to get along with his or her environment or location with the greatest success and least conflict or struggle with others or the given tasks. So with that being said, we're usually talking about adaptive behaviors in the school environment and how can we get students to do certain tasks like collecting their materials, or maybe using the restroom, such things as that. But now we're talking about the home environment. And again, this is a perfect opportunity to see if our students now can generalize that skill set. They were able to do it in the home, school environment. Can they do it in the home environment? And we're going to talk about why are adaptive behaviors so important. Teaching the child or the student to become an active member of their family life will ultimately widen their access to communication and social opportunities, and will increase the likelihood of more successful experiences for them in their home life and other environments. So again, Gina talked about it, the generalization of skills. We want our students to be as independent as possible, to be as successful as possible in each and every environment that they encounter. So here are some examples of adaptive behaviors for our younger learners. They could pick up or put away their toys, sort clothes, make bed, put clothes away, load dishwasher, set the table, clear the table, match socks. I am an educator and also a father of 3 young children. So I am learning that there is always a teachable moment throughout the day. These adaptive behaviors are making their beds, setting the table, but there is always an opportunity to teach given the circumstances that we're in. So some examples for elementary or middle school learners: meal prep with produce, wash produce, sorry for this spelling error, simple cutting, sweeping, vacuuming, collecting garbage, rake leaves, make meals, clean tub or shower. So those are just some exact examples of adaptive behaviors. And now, how do we teach them? And Gina touched upon this in her presentation, but task analysis. What are those task analysis going to look like? Visual schedules, video modeling, prompting, shaping, and also reinforcement. Our day-to-day lives have changed quite a bit, and we need to find new and different ways to reinforce what tasks may seem very mundane. So we're going to have to look at how we're reinforcing our students. All right, so task analysis. Task analysis is the process of breaking a skill into smaller, more manageable steps in order to teach the skill. As the smaller steps are mastered, the learner becomes more and more independent in his or her ability to perform the larger task. So we can task analyze anything. Again, I just came up with is putting clothes away, sorting books, and all those other adaptive tasks that we can do. Just down into smaller tasks and teaching them step by step. Okay, and then identify the type of instruction for the student. This is what's going to be most important. How are we going to teach this student or this child this adaptive skill? What do they need? What kind of do they need visual supports? So visual supports are tools presented visually that supports an individual. Visual supports might include, but are not limited to, pictures, written words, objects within the environment, arrangement of the environment, or visual boundaries, schedules, maps, labels, organizational systems, timelines, and scripts. One thing that I think I have learned in meeting every day with everyone at 11 o'clock is we're getting a lot of good information. And I know Cindy Simpson pointed out visual supports in a certain location. If we go to the kitchen, what is our task analysis when we're putting away our dishes? What's that adaptive behavior? And having those visual supports accessible for that child in that particular environment. Video modeling. I'm not going to get into great detail about this, but I know Laura Ferguson touched on about it yesterday in her training. But video modeling is a mode of teaching that uses the video recording and display equipment to provide a visual model of the target behavior or skill. Types of video modeling include basic video modeling, video self-modeling, point of view, and video prompting. Video modeling involves recording someone besides the learner engaging in the target behavior. The video is then reviewed by the learner at the later time. Okay, so we've now videoed all those small steps to teach the student this adaptive skill. Video self-monitoring is used to record the learner displaying the target skill or behavior and is reviewed later. Point of view video modeling is when the target behavior or skill is recorded from the perspective of the learner. Video prompting involves breaking the behavior skill into steps and recording each step, which will incorporate pauses during which the learner may attempt the step before viewing subsequent steps. Video prompting may be done with either the learner or someone else acting as a model. Okay, and I think this is something that Gina touched upon about how can we get data on certain things. Well, we can have the parents possibly videotaping them putting away the dishes or making the bed or doing some of those adaptive tasks that we had already spoken about earlier. Okay, so how are we reaching this student again? Prompting. What kind of instruction does a student need? Procedures include any help given to learners that assist them in using a specific skill. These procedures are often used in conjunction with other evidence-based practices, including reinforcement. Prompts are generally given by an adult or peer before or as a learner attempts to use a skill. A variety of prompting procedures support the learning and the development of the child. I think it's important when teaching students adaptive behaviors and using task analysis to really take time and observe when and where is this child possibly having a difficult time in this task. What kind of prompt do I need to get them? Do I respond by interrupting and give them a gestural prompt, a full physical prompt, possibly just a visual? But it's important that we take the time, especially now when we have all this time, to slow down and really observe and see what our students need and even our children at home to accomplish these tasks. And reinforcement is the relationship between the learner behavior and the consequence that follows the behavior. This relationship is only considered reinforcement if the consequences increases the probability that the behavior will occur in the future. So when we break down these tasks, we may need to reinforce with a good job or a pat on the back after step 2, when it's actually 4 steps into the task analysis. The ultimate goal of reinforcement is to help learners learn new skills and maintain their use over time in a variety of settings with many different individuals. Okay, we want our students to generalize these skills in other environments to be successful. And remember, regardless of the child's level of functioning, it is essential to individualize instruction for a child so they can begin to learn how to take some responsibility in caring for themselves and becoming as independent as possible. So we really want to look at, what does this student need? How do I break down this task, this skill, to have this student become independent and successful? And right here, Gina spoke about this, about unique learning, having access. There's a lot of task analysis in there for adaptive behavior. This one is preparing a snack. And as you can see, it uses the visual things. I think it's symbol sticks that it uses. So we have steps 1 through 10. But that's just an example of what a student can use. They can self-monitor, check it off, but this is a good support. Here's another example of task analysis for adaptive behaviors. All right. Changing paper in the here. And that's really all I have to share about adaptive behaviors. What I do want to emphasize is the resources that have been shared throughout the week. Gina, again, has a great shared drive that she is working on with her resource teachers. I would also like to point out what I thought was another very good presentation with Cindy Simpson with Low Tech or No Tech on Wednesday. At the end, she shared a lot of good resources on there. I just feel as if when we talk about adaptive behaviors, we're going to have to break down these steps with task analysis, prompt, and provide reinforcement. But again, using those resources that have been shared, we can come up with picture schedules and other ideas on how to introduce these tasks to our kiddos. So that is all I have. Any questions? And I know I have a team that's been helping out. Are there any questions in the chat that I need to address?
Hey, Nick, it's Melissa. How are you? You and Gina did a great job this morning.
Thank you.
I do have a question, and that we've been getting quite a bit. So what if parents are not taking that hard data, those plus and minuses? How can we capture or document the data or information that they are actually sharing with us?
I know. I think the possibility of the plus or minus. How are they prompting? Did they do it independently? Possibly a video. I think just we're going to have to just communicate with our parents and see how they're doing and what they're seeing in their home environment.
So really kind of what you're saying is if the parents say, I'm overwhelmed, I can't do plus and minus, anything that they communicate to you, you could write down as documentation. Is that what you're saying?
That is what I'm saying. Thank you.
All right, great. And what about, is there a way to maybe, when we talk about these task analysis and think about different things during the day, of helping parents prioritize if they can only do one or two things?
And prioritizing, that's the part that I feel like this time has given us time to be present. So I would just encourage parents that if you are going to work on an adaptive behavior and you are going to focus on that one, make sure that you have the resources around you, whether it be a picture, whether it be a list that's written down on a piece of paper for that student, but just be intentional when you are really focusing on that skill. There are a lot of opportunities for us throughout the day. And typically, I feel like we're moving so fast. But right now, we could just sit and focus on that one task. So I would just really encourage parents to, if it is 1, 2 times, that's fine. But just be present when you're really observing so you can give them those redirections, reinforce them, and just see where they may be struggling with that given task.
All right, great. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Gina. I hope you guys loved all these resources. Just remember that their slides are connected on the digital learning channel schedule. And you guys have a great Friday, and we will be back all next week from 11 to 11:30. Our session on Monday will be Annie Gooden and Laura Ferguson with Behavior Part 3. And Tuesday, you have Julie Donnellan with SDI and Progress Monitoring Part 3 to look forward to. And then we have sessions the rest of the week. So thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you guys so much for tuning in today and leading this awesome training. You guys have so many valuable resources for our teachers and students and parents. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Thank you.
All righty, we have about 3 minutes until our next session is going to start about doing backpack defenses. So while we're waiting, if you're joining us, thank you so much for tuning in. I am Matt Bolka with Digital Innovation. If you do want to find all of the resources that we've been talking about all day long or all week long, you can go to jcps.me/NTI, go to the Teacher Toolkit, and go to the virtual training schedule. And on there, we have everything linked for you, every presentation that's been given for this week and for the previous week. So if you missed something about Study Island Basics or Clever 101, we also have 2 members of our digital innovation team, Elaine Abenatha and Jim Unger, who will be going through and breaking these videos up. That way you can find a specific 30-minute video on each of these sections that you can go back and watch for your viewing pleasure in the future. If you also want to stay involved in the conversation, you can follow us on Twitter at JCPSDI. And you can also use the hashtag JCPSDigIn, which does stand for Digital Innovation. And tweeting to that hashtag and tagging us allows us to retweet you and allows us to get out the awesome things that you're doing to the rest of the district, so to hopefully inspire some other teachers, students, and parents to continue to do awesome things in this challenging and different time. So if we look at our schedule, this is our last session before a small break for lunch. And then we will be back at 12:30 with Danielle Washburn. She will be your moderator for the rest of the day. So right now we have defenses during NTI with Dr. Coleman coming up. And she has a large crew with her to talk about the awesome stuff that our kids are doing for backpack defenses. So if you are joining us, please participate in the chat. Let us know if you have any questions, and please let us know what school or department you are from as you're joining us. And I will, I don't see Dr. Coleman, I don't think, but one of you guys want to go ahead and take it away?
Okay.
You're all good.
All right. Susan, do you want to get one here, or Tara?
Sharvita, you're good to go ahead and get started. I know Carmen could not join us this morning, so I think Susan Price is here to take her place just to introduce everybody.
Okay. All right. Well, I am Dr. Sharvita West. I'm principal at Brandeis Elementary School. And this week, myself, along with my colleagues at the middle and high school levels, have been talking about defenses and how we have continued our processes during NTI. For us at Brandeis, I know we've said this and everybody's kind of reiterated the same thing, that pretty much lots of flexibility and patience throughout this process, giving students an opportunity to kind of be the facilitators of this process with lots of support from the adults. I do have my academic instructional coach on the line with me, Karen Jones. And so I am going to, Karen, if you can share the screen, or Felicia. I'm not great at Google Meet, so I'm going to let somebody else drive while I kind of do an overview of what Brandeis is doing with the defenses. I see Felicia has joined us too, so hello, Felicia.
Somebody's showing the slides. I see. It looks like.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Okay. Okay, Karen, do you want to walk through our slides, and then I'll just chime in?
Really quickly before we do that, Susan, do you mind to scroll your cursor to the bottom and click on where it says Captions down there? That way we have those for us. Oh, if you just click where it says CC, it'll turn the captions on for you. Oh, just a little bit to the left. Oh. Did it freeze? I'm not sure what happened. Nope. Oh no, you're offline.
Miss Aegis, could you go ahead and share your screen? I know that you've been driving for me, so maybe you could drive for Sharvita.
Thank you.
Oh, here we go. Thank you.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
Okay, so at Brandeis, we were kind of in the position to really start backpacks the 3 Wednesdays following when all this started. So we had developed, and this was an idea that I received from Barrett Middle School, which I highly recommend moving forward even for next year for you guys, is we created at one Google Classroom. And so all 98 of our students' backpacks were turned in, and we were able to give feedback. So we have access to all of them. And so we really were in the position to prepare for the defenses and going into figuring out tools to do that. We did, the link here on the video is me showing the kids how to use Screencast-O-Matic. That was my first shot, and that's kind of plan A for them to record their backpack presentations using Screencast-O-Matic. Things have evolved and changed even since Monday. That didn't become accessible to all of the students, so we're using really everything. Screencastify, we get in Google Meets and record. So we've got lots of options. The last case scenario for us is for students that don't have access just to telephone calls, because we do have access to their backpack. If nothing else, they can talk us through their artifacts because we're able to see them. Also, some of the kiddos have done speaker notes. So they've typed kind of what they would say in their presentation, which has been another approach to getting their defenses in. Ultimately, I have a spreadsheet. Can we click to the next slide? Yeah, there's a sample of the Google Sheet that looks like Dr. West has linked in, that I just made a real quick Google Sheet that has all of the children's names on it. And in whatever form or fashion, if we're able to get a link to the video, I'm keeping them all there. One thing that I had mentioned earlier in the week that I think has been a blessing for us that I highly recommend for next year for anyone is to attach your fifth graders to mentors in your building. We've been super strategic in pairing our students with, maybe the teacher they had in first grade or someone that they are able to connect with in the building who've mentored them really throughout the year, just asking occasionally what you have in your backpack and talking through those. So we're using those mentors now as our panel. And so we've got, teachers who can go to this Google Sheet where most, I would say 80% of our students will be able to have a video, maybe more. And so our panels can go and watch their video. And we've turned our, I think on the next slide, we've turned our rubric or scoring onto Google Form so that the panel members will fill out the Google Forms. And I'm going to package their input for the students. And I, got some great input from middle and high school, these meetings about, making those phone calls when a kid successfully defends their backpack. I think that's just such a great idea to make those phone calls and let them know that they've, passed their defense and sharing their feedback. We do have a sample of one of our students who, if we go back one slide, that student sample is what it looks like on Screencast-O-Matic, one of our kiddos. We can look at a little bit of that.
Oh, we can't hear any sound coming through. Might be because you're muted. There we go.
So, let's get started. First, to just give you I'm going to tell you just a little bit about me. So, I love softball. It's like my passion sport. I am tomboy. I have probably never worn pink. I'm not a big Princesses fan, I love Oceanel Beach and the Cabin I Stay In, which is right. Okay. I got into know, and so yeah, can't wait to go. When I think of productive collaborator, I think of setting goals to make us a better team and to make us a better group together. And
you can probably pause it there.
Better and being.
Yeah. So that's a pretty accessible platform, Screencast-O-Matic, that we're using. But again, and we'll hear this from our middle school and high school counterparts, just the flexibility of this. There's lots of platforms to do this, and just the flexibility of that is going to be critical. Dr. West, do you have anything to jump in with there?
Just in this presentation, I know that this is going to be available later. The link or hyperlinks that you can click on and see the resources that we've shared. And we're always available to send, of course, what we have. So if you're interested, just let us know. And we'll turn it over to Tara.
Tara, you're muted.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. We're going to talk at the middle school level about some tips for admin and backpack needs. But like Sharvita said, the key here is flexibility, adaptability, and just making sure that the communication is as clear as we can make it right now and giving kids lots and lots of opportunities. Like I often say, this is gray and it's not a black and white kind of thing. It's going to require phone calls. It's going to require support staff and work to ensure that our kids without digital means are able to do this as well. So we had defenses planned all the way through the end of May, like many of you did, and quite a few to go, about 363 total. At this point, we have about 200, and I can tell you my best piece of advice is to scrap your original plan
and start over. You can see that we gave guidelines that allowed for flexibility in our 8th grade plan. And we communicate that to students and families. I think it's best to have a backpack lead, but again, the teachers and that backpack team are so important to ensure that the communication is there and the organization is there. We recommend using Google Classroom to post the backpack assignment. That way, when students turn it in, you'll know that it's either ready to review or they're ready to present. And so that way you can provide feedback so that students know when they're ready to go forward. We also offer a lot of recording and live options. We are promoting at Ramsey Screencastify, and if you use the code CAST_COVID right now, it will extend your Screencastify subscription so that it does not cut off after 5 minutes, which is wonderful. Some students have wanted to do live defenses on Google Meet, which we have done. And then, of course, we have to have some phone options for our kids that maybe don't have the digital means to do that. In terms of organization, we've made the rubric digital so that we can keep track of who's passed, who needs more support. And finally, there's 2 more things I'd like to focus on. In middle school, we have teams, and those teams have done such a great job, as I'm sure other middle schools have as well, of setting up live lessons and recording and creating exemplars for students. Right now, I think the best thing we can do is to provide a lot of scaffolded support for our kids. And if that means a model, if that means a live video, a live lesson, we have done it. And you'll see on the next page when Miss Stages, our 8th grade backpack extraordinaire, presents that she'll show you some different models. And finally, at Ramsey, don't forget, and in middle school and in all grade levels really, don't forget your other grade levels that aren't doing the backpack defenses. So in 6th and 7th grade, we had a lot of momentum going with artifacts and uploading. And so I just want to remind everyone to have a plan for those kids as well. We have asked that they upload 4 out of 6 artifacts for the success skills by the end of the year. They can use choice boards, teacher assignments, and really there's no better time to apply real world learning or what's going on around them than right now. So I'll let Ms. Stages take it over to show you a couple of specific examples.
Thank you. So,
Hold on one second. Tara, can you go ahead and mute real quick? Thank you. Okay, you're good.
As we talked about, we are divided up into teams in 8th grade, in all grades. But so on here, on these links are the different directions that different teams have put out to their kids. You'll also see recorded live lessons, some examples of backpacks, messages in Google Classroom, and you feel free to explore all that later. What I wanted to show you is how my Google Classroom and the assignment is set up. So what I have done is provided them some sort of an example of what a defense would look like. I've also provided all of the kids a template, just more as a checklist to make sure that they don't miss any of the success skills or any of the requirements. And I've also provided them with a rubric as well. And there's also some other materials in my Google Classroom. The reason I decided to set it up as an assignment was just like Dr. Greenwell said, so that we can see who turned them in, who's ready for us to review them. And we can also have a way of providing feedback on there. So as you'll see, because we know our kids are up at all hours of the night, and so are some of our teachers, we were able to provide feedback and have a conversation of sorts back and forth. And with this one, my language arts teacher even collaborated with us. So she was able to hop in and help us out. So down at the bottom, you'll see he's finally ready. He's taken his video and he's going to share that with us shortly. This is another example just to see some of the comments that we have shared back and forth. And then she actually uploaded her video right here and passed earlier this week, which was awesome. I'm going to show you a couple of our examples of our backpack defenses. I'm going to shorten them a little bit just because I had one submit last night and his was amazing. So I wanted to share that with you guys as well.
I'm Olivia. This is my backpack defense for my 2020 school year. A little bit about me. I've played tennis ever since 6th grade in my 8th grade year. I'm hoping to continue this and play for my high school team. I'm also in FCA. FCA stands for Fellowship of Christian Athletes. This happens every Wednesday of the week, and we learn about God and pray for them. I'm also in Best Buddies and Peer Partners.
She goes on to talk about the fact that she chose to be a part of Best Buddies and Peer Partners as a way of, she wants to be a special education teacher when she gets older. So that's a way of her going ahead and getting a jump start on that in middle school, which I thought was awesome. The other one that we shared is a little bit more professional. He actually projected his up onto the TV. You can see he's fully dressed up in his tie and everything.
I hope everybody's staying healthy and safe out there. Without further ado, I'm going to present my backpack. I was born in Louisville, Kentucky, and I lived with my mom and my dog named Knox. When I'm not at school, I enjoy playing video games with my friends, drawing, and Pokemon, watching Star Wars, and learning every lyric in the Hamilton soundtrack.
Those are linked, so if you want to go back and watch them at a later time, you're more than welcome to. This is the one I got last night, and I was super impressed with how he was able to show his whole face, but then also like have his slides up in the corner as opposed to the reverse. So,
hello, my name is Anoop and today I'm going to be presenting my backpack defense. All about me. I am a student here at Ramsey Middle School on the animator team. I play sports such as soccer, tennis, and etc. I was born in Nepal on July 3rd, 2005. When I was 5 years old, I came to the United States of America. I have a brother who is 12 years old and a sister who is 6 years old. Numeracy. For numeracy, I did my skill factor project. This fits into numeracy because it has the ability to understand and work with numbers. In this artifact, I was taught and shown how to solve the scale factor. And the picture on the right shows what my group and I did.
So he goes on to talk about all of his artifacts. Another thing, and I know our elementary people have already mentioned that we do reach out and I make phone calls to the children whenever they pass, which is we reach out to the parents and I just have their kids call me and I get to give them that news in person, which I think is amazing to be able to just have those conversations with those kids when we don't really get to do that in times like this very often. The other thing I wanted to share is I absolutely love the fact that this young man, for example, we got to see a little bit of his backstory and where he came from. And the fact that his story doesn't look like anyone else's. And I think that's absolutely amazing that we get to see that from these kids every day. But that's what we're doing at Ramsey. I'm going to stop sharing because I think Jennifer likes to drive.
Yeah, I do. I like to drive, like to be in control of what I'm looking at. I'm Jennifer Ulan. I am a counselor at Seneca High School. Sorry, I can't multitask for some reason. I work with all seniors, so backpack defenses fall into my area, and it's something that I am passionate about and really like working with our scholars, and I love to see them, how excited they are when they successfully complete it.
Jennifer?
Sorry.
Sorry, just very quickly before you go on. Can you click hide and add captions? Thank you.
Is it there?
Yeah, you're good.
Sorry about that. I meant to do that. So our senior defenses were all planned for this week. The ones that we had left, we've already completed about half throughout the year, but we had about half remaining that needed to get done. And then it was going to end with today, would have been prom. So the seniors are all really upset. And I was going to have them go ahead and do their defenses through Google Meet. But after hearing feedback from them and knowing that this is a really stressful and upsetting time for a lot of our seniors, I decided to cancel the defenses this week and move to a more flexible scheduling option and taking that pressure off. So they can tell me when they're ready and how they have different options for how they want to present. So some questions that I have received is how are we going to ensure participation when we don't have that pressure on our seniors? And mostly it's just positive reinforcement. So they have the option to get the backpack certificate if they complete. They are trying for a medal for distinction to wear during graduation. Teachers are encouraged to offer extra credit in their classes. And I've also been using social media and Google Classroom to post successful defenses with the students' permission, of course. And that's gotten a lot of looks from other students, and as soon as I post them, they usually will reach out to me and they want to go ahead and schedule their backpack. So it's been a good experience. I just had another one successfully defend yesterday. That brings me to 17 that have completed after starting NTI. I have all my resources on a senior Google Classroom. So all 285 of my kids are on here. We've used this all year, so they're familiar with it. This is where they can find their sign up, the rubric, a presentation template, examples. I have a tutorial on how to present digitally. I also offer office hours through Google Meet every day to answer any senior questions, but a lot of it will have to do with defenses. That's when we can look at their presentation, give them feedback, all that good stuff. And I just wanted to go over, and a lot of this has already been talked about, different options that we are allowing for seniors to defend, and the key word that's been said over and over and over again is flexibility. So these were some options. They could record themselves presenting. They could do a screen recording via Google Meet, Zoom, whatever app they really feel comfortable with. We could do a live presentation via Google Meet. We just had our first one yesterday. It went really well. I like that because we could troubleshoot, give feedback in real time, which was helpful. If a student wants to present but they don't have that technology, it's easy for me to access their backpack, and then we can discuss the artifacts over the phone, and that would count. And if you have any questions about anything that I've talked about, go ahead and send me an email. And then I did want to show you some examples. So this is one example of a scholar that just presented. He had someone record him, and he's one of our EL kids, but he did a great job.
Jennifer, we're having some trouble hearing it for some reason. I'm not sure why.
All right, well, let's look at this one, because this is a screen recording example. Maybe. Nope, he's talking and I can't hear him either.
I think it might have been muted. That might be why.
Oh, there it is. So that just kind of gives an idea of the different ways they can present. I also wanted to show, this is our rubric. So I send this out after kids have finished. It has their defense status, their scoring, and kind of highlights the information at the bottom with feedback that they can receive. So I just wanted to show that information, and then that is everything that I have. And I think we're finished.
All right. Did we see any questions in the chat? I don't think I saw any. All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in today, ladies. Thank you for teaching us all week long about how our students and schools are being awesome for backpack defenses. And I hope you all have a great weekend.
Thanks.
All right, everyone. We really appreciate you tuning in to JCPS Live this morning. We are going to take a short break until 12:30, and then Danielle Washburn from Digital Innovation will be back to lead us through the last 3 hours of our week for training. So just a quick reminder, if you need any of these resources, please go to jcps.me/NTI. You can click on the teacher toolkit, go to the virtual training schedule, and we have all of these trainings linked on here for you. You can see that we come back. Our first session is going to be helping elementary students learn from home with Laura Donnelly, and we will have sessions go until 3:30 today. So thank you so much. Enjoy your lunch and have a great, healthy weekend. Thank you.